Hey there guys, Benobi here bringing you another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. This one's going to be a bit more of a standard deck. It's going to be one of the top decks of the format in my opinion, which is going to be Infernities. Infernities is a very fun deck because of the way that it can snowball and the way that it can get those come from behind victories, and obviously just being able to have those like 5-minute solitaire like turns. Although it can be boring for your opponent, it can be kind of fun to operate for yourself. So basically how the deck operates is getting no hand, abusing the fact that you can special summon Archfiend to recruit cards from your deck, set things like Barrier and Break to lock your opponent out with overwhelming advantage and field control. So going into the monster lineup, it's very standard. 3 copies of Infernity Archfiend, only 2 copies of Necromancer. I personally don't think 3 is necessary. 2 copies of Summoner Monk, 2 copies of Sturgeon Street Patrol, 3 I think is too many, and then the 1 copy of Armageddon Knight and Greffer combo, and lastly but not least, 1 copy of Archfiend Eris. So a pretty standard monster lineup. Going into the spells, 3 copies of Instant Fusion because you want to get those rank 4s off as early as possible to get Lavalval Chain. Then 3 copies of Soul Charge. Soul Charge is obviously just kind of a degenerate card for this deck, the way that you can dump Archfiend and then just have an easy way to special summon it, even during your, a lot of times you're using it during your first turn, so the no battle phase is kind of a non-factor. And really, you don't even have to bring back that many monsters. You can just bring back the 1 Archfiend, potentially 2 Archfiends, and do some pretty dumb stuff with that. Then the 3 copies of MST, just basic back row hate, something that you can set from your hand. 1 copy of Night Beam, some additional back row hate, and more spell food for Monk. Then to round up the spell lineup, you have some recruitment cards. You have the Rhoda, the Foolish, the Infernity Launcher, and the Archfiend Labyrinth, which all recruit in their own individual way. Launcher obviously broken out, even still at 1. Foolish Burial, being able to send Eris, which you can then get Archfiend to your hand, which then you can banish Street Patrol, summon, all of that shenanigans. Labyrinth, which you can abuse with Barracks or your other feed monsters. Rhoda to choose whichever guy is more beneficial to you. Greffer if you have dead stuff in your hand. Or just use it as spell food for Monk. So you'll notice I'm choosing not to play Upstart Goblin in my version. Personal choice. I think you have plenty of viable spells, and also there's not really like that one card that you need to get to in this deck, so I don't really feel like Upstart is necessary, but personal opinion. Moving into the traps, you got Staples, Warning, Compulse, Bottomless. Then you have the Infernity Staples, 3 copies of Break, and the 1 Barrier. So then for your other back row, I choose to play a little bit more of a back row heavy Infernity deck with 2 copies of Breakthrough Skill. Obviously you don't want your back row clogged up with Fiendish Chain since you need to keep your hand free. And weird enough to say, 2 copies of Mirror Force, kind of a tech choice. And I said it's weird to say that because it's weird to call something as old school staple like Mirror Force a tech choice. But a lot of times you end up with things like Lavalval Chains, or Leviers or whatever on board, things that are actually pretty easy to run over, and I like the ability to protect them with Mirror Force. Deep Prison is also a good option since Deep Prison stops hands, but overall I've really enjoyed playing the 2 copies of Mirror Force. It's some of the things that I have in the deck over the 3 copies of Upstart. I just don't think Upstart's necessary in Infernities. Then you have 2 copies of Trap Stun, in case you don't have the Wombo combo first turn, or in case you would have been going second. You can set up with Trap Stun to be able to ensure that your plays go off. Or you can even use it to disable your 1 copy of Vanity's Emptiness. Vanity's Emptiness just degenerate, and a lot of times you're going to be going into Key Beetle anyway, just because you need a monster that you can detach with the first turn. And you could even play Vanity's Emptiness at more copies if you want to, but I'm currently playing it only at the 1. Moving into the extra deck. The extra deck for me is a little bit unique because of my personal limitations. I only own 1 copy of Honor Arc and Lavalval Chain. Lavalval Chain, obviously a card you would want at 3 for this particular deck. Maybe I could see justifying playing it at 2, but you definitely want to have 2 if you have to, but I currently don't. So for me, I have the 2 copies of Levier, the 1 Lavalval Chain, sadly, and then the staple 4s. You have your Honor Arc, your Ragna Zero, your Diamond Dire Wolf, your Cowboy, your Black Ship, and your Maystroke. I still like I said before, I still consider Maystroke an extra deck staple, especially because it's a fiend. So under Palabyrinth, he's even bigger, and just a good thing to keep on board. Then your role players, you have the 1 Key Beetle. The entire deck is dark, so obviously, in general, it's just a good card, but also you can abuse it with things like Emptiness, and like I said before, it's a good thing that you can detach with on your first turn in case you need to put one of those Archfiends back in the grave. You have the 1 Heartland Draco, just because you are running a field spell, so you can make use of its effect. And since I just have some extra space, because I don't have multiple copies of those cards, and you really only make rank 4 in this deck, so you can afford to play some sort of more outlier rank 4s. I was opting to either play this or Emerald. You could play Emerald in this spot as well. And then another little bit of a tech choice, 1 copy of Steel Swarm Roach, a card that you don't really see anymore. But opting to play this, even though special summoning level 5 and higher monsters isn't even that popular nowadays anyway, but just the fact that it's a fiend and you can, it can be used in conjunction with Palabyrinth, and I have the extra space, I opted to play that instead of something like a second Diamond Dyer or whatever. I opted to play the Roach. For your fusions, you have the Barracks, since it's a fiend, you can abuse it with Palabyrinth, and then 2 Darkfire Dragons for instant fusion plays to make rank 4s. So overall, that's the deck. Pretty short and sweet. It's one of the more standard decks that I'll do a deck list on, but overall, it is a really fun deck. Like I said, it's kind of a guilty pleasure to sit there and play Solitaire for 2 minutes. But those kind of decks can just be fun. And yeah, overall, that's pretty much it. You saw a few personal choices, but that's going to be the profile. I'll leave a Dueling Network image in the description below if you want to take a look at it. If you need anything else, just let me know. Have a good one, guys.